math right here. Okay. So, let's ask ourselves, just in the US, how big are the TradFi markets, right? Well, you can just, with just chat GPT, you can get these numbers, but the stock market is about a $46 trillion market, the US stock market, right? The US bond market's another 46 trillion. And there's about 6 trillion in cash and cash equivalents, that's sort of sitting around, right? So it's about $100 trillion total. That's the size of the US TradFi market, right?
Yep.
So now let's sort of say, okay, how much of that 100 trillion, that is, investors like you or me, or, who have brokerage accounts, but also, also institutions like pension funds, et cetera, own, all these things. And a lot of it's not self-directed, right? So the advisors, who are advising on behalf of people, right? So it's one third. It's 1/3 institutions, 1/3, directed investing, and then 1/3 self-directed, investing. And you ask yourself, of that $100 trillion pie, how much of it is currently allocated to Bitcoin? And your first instinct is to say, well, Bitcoin's $1 trillion. And a little bit more than $1 trillion, 1.4, having kind of watched this thing grow like a mushroom, right, over the last 30 years, right? I can tell you that it is, there's a tsunami of cash, a tsunami of money that will want to get into this asset, right? And, it's the only thing that's preventing it is sort of the sort of molasses-like behavior of these investors, right? They are slow to adapt to new things. They are literally like the people who said the horse and buggy are here to stay. Like that's it. The car, it goes too fast. It's like, why would I want one of those? I need to fill it up with gas. No, not interested. And so I think we're in this era where, we are going to see a changing of the guard in the next couple of decades, where this 60-40 portfolio that has been like, deified by, academics, some of which I've met, right? Some of these academics, Nobel Prize winning academics. And this is going to be turned on its head. It's going to be turned on its head by this new asset class called Bitcoin. No idea, right? They just know that they somehow power chat GPT, which is magic. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. That's it, And I think that most TradFi people are never going to do the work to even understand even the basics of Bitcoin, unfortunately, now I'm still kind of pushing them to do it. I try to get, I view it as part of my mission in life is to educate people a little bit as to what the hell this thing is and why it's so different. But it's kind of a hopeless thing. I think most people are not going to dig in the weeds enough. They're just like, okay, it's this thing. It goes up. That's it. I got to own some. But that's dangerous because the problem with that is if you're at that level of understanding of Bitcoin, when it goes down 30%, you panic and you sell.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I think the big advantage of understanding Bitcoin is it will give you the certainty to kind of 100 million. You can do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is the solution to this problem, And I think it was, it's a long, twisted route. And some people had some of the elements. Nick Szabo had some of the elements. Hal Finney had some of the elements. Wei Dai had some of the elements, right? Yeah. David Chong had some of the elements, right? But all these things kind of came into place in 2008. And then it was sort of eureka, Eureka, this is it. We got the solution. Bam, So I definitely feel like this is a mathematical solution, to a problem, something like Fermat's last theorem, you could state the problem. This is the solution. There is no other solution, and it's going to go down as one of the great solutions of all times, really, I think.
And that's another misconception is, you said early in your learning about Bitcoin is thinking, oh, this is the first, it'll be replaced, but it's it's not the first. It's years of work and multiple attempts before it, right?
It's been a long path. All these people had certain parts of this, and Satoshi kind of put it all together,
Yeah.
And that was and that's the genius of Satoshi, right? Like,
Yeah.
The math of Satoshi, the math of blockchain is, not hard. It's not hard. I mean, some people will have a problem with it. On I think page 8, there's some math on the Poisson distribution of the attacking chain, which I have that diagram there.
Yeah.
Was the attacking chain, attacker chain, kind of trying to do a double spend, and why the math doesn't work. So it's all based on this game theory, and there is a math that you can prove that it's sort of exponentially hardening, and Satoshi came up with those numbers in the white paper, and I think I'm probably one of the only people who's actually verified them. So
Yeah.
I went back and I'm like, let me check his math, and I'm like, yep, completely correct.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
What do these?
Because I think the problem is everybody gets in. I mean, there's all these narratives, right? So Ethereum came out and it's sort of like, we're the world computer, right? And then, oh wow, you can do anything. It's so much better than Bitcoin. And then, EOS was like, we're faster than Ethereum. We're Ethereum on steroids. I think that was the EOS. Okay, great. Now you have Solana comes around, and then like Solana is like, we're even faster. We're like, we got 1 million transactions, whatever, and then you got all these narratives, right? Like, more recently you have these coins that came out of Facebook, right? Meta, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Sui and Optos, right? Like, we're more of a modern thing. I don't even know what half these things do anymore, right? Or Cardano, we produce all these papers, and we have more PhDs than anybody else, So there's all these narratives, and you can get seduced by these narratives, right?
Yeah.
And they all, like, if you're in Lebanon, they can kind of come in and shut your bank account, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's you don't have it's not like you have property rights. So I think both of those things are killer apps, right? And the ability to kind of put your savings, take it out of the market, and then have more purchasing power 4 years later is an amazing killer app, right?
Yeah.
And that turns out to be the killer app, and Bitcoin has perfect product market fit for that app.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you start thinking, but there's 1 million or 1 billion gamers out there, and there's all these, then you're sort of led down this rabbit hole of, I need better, faster, cheaper. I want the one that's backed by Kleiner Perkins or Sequoia Capital, And so I think it takes a while to understand what the problem is that Bitcoin solves.
Yeah.
And again, that's a false narrative, because that's not what this thing is. What this thing is this is the future of money, right?
Yeah.
So, once you understand that, and you understand that you should probably look at this as a way to store your money and not as a way to try to get in on the next, angel investment. I think that's a mind shift that it takes a while to get to. But I think now people are starting to get that. I do feel that. As I feel like our zeitgeist is sort of like gelling around, Bitcoin and Bitcoin only.
Yeah.
Although, so with Wayne Vaughn, who's an old OG Bitcoiner, and I mean, we're kind of creating this brand called Bitcoin First.
Yep.
And and the brand really is intended to not be. It's to open the door for other things. It's not to say everything. So the biggest thing is Bitcoin needs to be legal tender, which means that if I buy and sell Bitcoin, there's no tax on the transaction. I don't have to report that buying some speculative commodity, right? It has to become legal tender, right? In El Salvador, it's legal tender now, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to report. If I buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin, doesn't matter for US dollars, which is their second currency, right?
Yep.
So I think that's the first thing is ultimately, and there's steps along the way. So the first step would be, let's not have any tax requirements for some amount of, let's say, $20,000 worth of Bitcoin a year. You don't even have to report taxes on,
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, right? And then there's all other legal things. Certainly don't want to have China have, sentient AI and you don't, So
Yeah.
I feel like Bitcoin is like that. And I think I think it will evolve to becoming I'm a proponent. I do think we are going to get to a hyper Bitcoinization. I don't think eventually. I don't think the dollar will exist or any other fiat currency. I think they will all go away. It'll be like the 33 RPM records, the rotary phone, and the horse and the buggy.
Yeah.
These things, the fact that they use a lot right now doesn't mean they're going to stay forever. I mean, we evolve as a species, and we're going to evolve towards Bitcoin. It's a better form of government of money, and it's a form that can work even between adversaries. Right? We don't get along with
Right.
Russia, but we can both agree